Alright, this is 4.3, section 4.3, conditional statements. We're going to start off with, if it is raining, then I will stay inside. First thing up there on page 204 in your textbook is a conditional statement. A conditional statement is a logical statement that has two parts. It has a hypothesis. Okay, this is your educated guess. This is your conjecture, to use another math word. If it is raining, okay, then we have a conclusion. If this is true, then I will stay inside. That is your conclusion. This is an if-then statement. Okay, we also describe it as a conditional statement. That takes care of number 2, the second line there. It says when a conditional statement is written in if-then form, the if part contains a hypothesis and the then part is the conclusion. Okay? Make sure you have that written down. This is the hypothesis and this is the conclusion. Okay? Questions so far? This is section 4.3, Math 1. Alright. Then we come on down and we've got to talk about the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. These three things. Okay? They're very important. There's no particular order. Okay? You should be writing this in your notes. If I talk about the converse, the definition over there says the converse of a conditional statement is where you swap or you switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. So the if part, the hypothesis, goes in the back, behind then. The then part, the conclusion, swaps and comes up there with the if. So if this is my conditional statement, this is the original statement, the converse of this statement simply says, if I stay inside, then it is raining. I've switched the hypothesis and the conclusion. Okay, that's what a converse of a conditional statement is. Okay, that definitely needs to be a note card for this week. Questions on converse? All right. The inverse of our conditional statement, okay, a nice easy way to remember this, is not. Okay, you're going to put a not in front of the hypothesis, and you're going to put a not in front of the conclusion. Okay? You need to sit up, please. So if it is not raining, all right, we went back up here to the original statement and we inserted a not. And we say if it is not raining, then our conclusion is, then I will not stay inside. If it is not raining, then I will not stay inside. And let me say this. Sometimes you have to delete a word. Sometimes you have to add a word. Sometimes you have to change the tense on a verb in order for it to make grammatical sense. Okay? What if it started out with a not in your original statement? What would you do in the inverse? Take it out. Exactly right. Take it out. So if, for some reason, your original statement had a not in it to begin with, then in your inverse, you would take that not out. Okay? So, back to converse. Converse, you swap them. You swap the hypothesis and the conclusion. Inverse, you keep them in the same order, but you add, typically, a not to the statement. If it is not raining, then I will not stay inside. Okay? Questions? All right, we're down to contrapositive. Contrapositive is the hardest to say. It is the longest word. In the definition, it has the most going on. It is the inverse of the converse. Well, that's confusing. Okay, because you got these two things going on. What is the contrapositive? How can we say it in a way that we remember? What do we do with contrapositive? We swap them from the original statement. We swap them and we do what? We say not. So we swap them and we say not. It's got the most going on. It's the most complicated. It's the longest word. It's the hardest one to say. Okay? All of those things go with contrapositive. So if our original statement is, if it is raining, then I will stay inside, the contrapositive is, if I do not stay inside, then it is not raining. Meaning I swapped them and I added a not. That's what contrapositive means. Okay? Questions? Bless you. Any questions on a conditional statement, the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive? Okay? These need to be studied. Somebody came into extra help this morning. Somebody I taught yesterday on B-Day. They came into extra help this morning after having been taught. And I said, okay, what's the converse? And he didn't know. Or I said, what's the inverse? And he didn't know. Okay? You've got to go home and memorize converse, inverse, and contrapositive. There's no way around it. There's no way for you to know when a test question says, state the inverse. If you don't have it memorized, you won't know what to do. Yes?
Like, not being smart or anything, but like, what does this do in math?
It is a way of thinking. It is when you argue with your parents, right? And you say, but everybody else is getting to go to the party, right? And you're using these logical arguments in order to make your argument, in order to prove that you should be allowed to go to the party, right? Your mom picks up the phone and calls the other person's, parents and say, are you going to be there? Okay, everything's good. Yes, then yes, you can go to the party. Okay, you made a logical argument. It's being able to prove and make a statement and say, because this is true, then this is true. Okay? If it is raining, then I will stay inside. Well, that's kind of arbitrary, and it's not a big deal. Over there, we're going to get to it in a second. We're going to do a definition about perpendicular lines, right? And we're going to say, if this is true, then this is true. And all other arguments fall from that statement. If this is true, then this is true, then we can prove other statements. Okay? Good question. Anybody else have a question? Okay? All right. Let me stop the tape. And where are we at?